Hi folks, welcome along. It's another Midlife Crisis Guys video. Adam here. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a while. In fact, it's been blooming ages. I've really missed getting out and doing stuff. But sadly, I fell foul to the dreaded coronavirus. Just sadly became one of the statistics. Not very nice, and sympathies go out to anyone that does contract it. So do wear your mask, do keep your distance and all that, and self-isolate if you do feel symptoms, blah blah blah. So back on it, let's get to it. It's a subject that I have kind of wanted to address before, and I was inspired by seeing a video by Renegade Scot, and he put up a really good video all about addressing the kind of the fears that some people may have. And the reason it does interest me is I have had people say to me they would love to do it themselves, but it just concerns them the fact that when you are out somewhere on your own, doesn't it get a bit scary? Before we get into is it scary or not, which if I'm brutally honest, no it isn't, it really isn't. But why do we wild camp? I'm interested to know what's the psyche behind the whole concept of some people just wanting to get away from everybody else, being completely on their own and just soaking up that solitude. I'm getting animated as I'm explaining it because it really is wonderful, and I do really recommend it. But with all that said, I do understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea, and it's not everyone's concept of fun, lying under a bit of canvas in the middle of a forest somewhere, listening to all sorts of strange, weird and wonderful noises outside the tent. I do totally get it. It's not going to make everybody feel that comfortable. I do think the whole, and this is what I really want to get at, addressing the whole thing about is it scary, is I tell you what makes it scary, it's our imaginations. Let's just clear up a couple of things first. I am by no means an experienced wild camper. I've been out a few times, and basically the videos that you will see on my channel are the extent of my experience while camping. The whole thing about being on your own, it totally changes the dynamics to when you're camping with a friend or a group of friends in the middle of the woods. It's 3 in the morning and you do hear that ksh, and you think, what the hell was that? Invariably, you can say, did you hear that? And then there'll be a chuckle or whatever. Yeah, what the effing hell was that? You know, and you end up a bit of humour or whatever, and you just kind of laugh it off and roll over and probably go back to sleep. But when you are on your own, you are left with your imagination just running wild, thinking, what was that? Now, was that fox? Was it a deer? Or is it a person out there? You know, you really do. You start to question yourself, and that, I believe, is what generates the fear, because you start to doubt what your explanation as to what that noise could have been. So in answering the whole question that I've actually asked on this video, is wild camping scary? It depends on your imagination. I really do believe that. If you let your imagination run wild and think that every single sound or unexplained noise that you hear outside the tent is something dreadful and awful, then I'm guessing, yeah, you're going to end up getting quite scared. But I take solace, and I really wish I could remember who I heard this from or where I read it or give credit to someone, but I'm pretty sure it was an article I read somewhere addressing this exact subject about wild camping and is it scary. And they said the worst enemy, as I've already said to you, is our imagination. But then they did go on to say that genuinely the chances of a mad axe wielding murderer stumbling upon your particular tent in your particular tiny area of the whole of the United Kingdom is very unlikely to happen. In fact, you are more likely to win the lottery. And I remember reading that thinking, that's brilliant, that is so true, you know, wouldn't it be lovely to win the lottery? But hey, there we go, I could upgrade my tent. But yeah, just take solace from that. Things, you know, and we are lucky in this country as well. I mean, I think, would wild camping be scary somewhere like Canada, where a friend of mine, an ambulance colleague, she went off on a bike and literally rode round. I mean, and she's got photos next to signs of saying beware of bears. And when she told the local shop as she was getting supplies, she was going in, they said you do need some form of self-protection. I think it was just some kind of like spray, some spray against a bear, but there you go. But, you know, fair play. And I think, I tell you what, I think I'd shite myself if I was in the forest and you heard a branch snap outside in Canada. I mean, I would love to hear if we've got any Canadians or anywhere, people that do seriously hardcore wild camp, not in the UK, but places where there genuinely are sort of threats, you know, invariably wildlife. Please do let me know. I'd love to know about that, because I think that would scare me. I just got to take a quick little break to say to you that I'm filming, and I'm going to look over at the 360 camera for a little bit of footage so you get a full view of where I am. I'm in the good old Summerhouse. Check out my video of how I built, oh yeah, it is a Summerhouse. Of course it's a Summerhouse. It's my studio, really. Sold as the Summerhouse though. But it's just started to pour with rain outside, and this is the first time I've actually done any recording or made a video in my Summerhouse studio. And I just want you to have a listen, see if we can hear it. See if you can hear the rain on the roof. Can you hear that? So the big question is, in the few times that I've been out wild camping on my own, have I had any scary experiences? And the truth is, not really. I'm going to be completely honest. Nothing that has really kind of, you know, I could not wait for daylight, or, you know, I packed up my tent and like run off and gone home in the middle of the night. I genuinely haven't had anything at all. There's been times when I have heard that dreaded strange noise outside of the tent. But you have got to remember, despite what I've just been saying, there's no wild animals that can cause you harm in the UK. There is still plenty of wildlife out there that is going to make some pretty strange noises. I mean, have you heard a deer or a stag doing his gurgling call at night? It sounds really, really spooky. But yeah, you've got, you know, foxes, you've got rats, you've got badgers rustling around. You know, there's all sorts of things that will out there and potentially make you wonder, what the heck is that? But there you go. But generally, there's nothing that's going to hurt you. The more you go out and the more you get used to these sounds, the less it's going to bother you at all. If you are concerned, obviously go with a friend. But when you are out there in the middle of nowhere, you set up your little tents, you have to have a bite to eat. Like I said, the coffee always tastes better on a wild camp, it really does. And then you just look up, you see the stars if you're lucky enough to have a clear night, and you just get in and just drift off to sleep with the sound of nature. It's just wonderful, wonderful. Highly, highly recommend it. There's a couple of instances where, with the benefit of hindsight, some locations that I camped at, had I known at the time, possibly would have let my imagination run wild. So let me elaborate on that. When I did the Pennine Way, my first Pennine Way trip on my, totally solo, up to Kinder Scout, across the Kinder Plateau, down miles and miles before you get to Snakes Pass, the A57, and you then cross the A57, go up towards a place called Bleaklow. Ultimately, I'm aiming for Crowden and Crowden Reservoir. So between the A57, Snakes Pass and Crowden Reservoir is this place called Bleaklow. Very aptly named, because it's pretty bleak, if I'm honest. But there you go. But I remember as I was walking up, heading up into the hill, seeing the mist, and it really was at just getting close to the time when I was going to have to think about setting up my tent. And yeah, as I was going up the hill, starting to get dusk, it felt like all the mist started to envelop, and there was kind of a bit of an eerie atmosphere. But hey, I pitched my tent, I camped, saw through the night, everything was absolutely fine, no drama at all. But alas, a short time afterwards, I returned to that very spot on Bleaklow I did some research, and then I did a film, and I'll put a link up, about a crashed B29 bomber. Sadly, it just crashed in bad weather into the side of Bleaklow, up at a place called Shelfstones, and 13 airmen instantly lost their lives. Very sad, but a fascinating place. And if you go up there, there are still large, well, I say large parts, just bits of wreckage still strewn around, and there's a few bits behind me, hopefully. But what I'm trying to say is, it occurred to me that where this crash site is, Shelfstones, is not that far away at all from where I had chosen to camp when I was doing to do my Pennine Way. So it was a dark, murky night, and had I known when I'd got into my tent that night, or whilst walking even, just sort of around as the mist kind of came in, had I known that it was the site of quite a large loss of life, very sadly, the imagination thing that I was on about earlier perhaps would have started playing tricks, you know, and I perhaps might have started to think, God, I hope that isn't an apparition of a lost soul of an airman over there, or if I was in my tent hearing sort of steps outside or whatever. That perspectively could have been quite spooky. And then the other one again was on the Pennine Way, but this time I was with my sister and the two of us, and that was actually, I'm trying to think which section that was actually. Oh yeah, that was from Crowden beyond, yeah, so it was the second section after that one I've just been on about, and we went off the Pennine Way. We met this lovely couple who explained, oh, you want to go off the Pennine Way, and basically without giving too much away, we found a wonderful waterfall, which is where we camped. It was amazing. It really was a wonderful, in fact I slept under my tarp that night, but again I could not believe it. A few months after we'd done that section, I was doing a bit of reading on the Moors murderers, and we all know that very famous case back in the 60s. But where we camped, again, was not very far away, the sites of where those poor unfortunate victims of the Moors murderers were buried. I'm not going to go on and on about that because it was a very, very unpleasant business, but again, had I known that when we actually camped, whoa, I'm pretty certain that the imagination might have run a bit wild again, and knowing that fact. But like I said, the fact is I did go and camp in those places, absolutely nothing happened, was totally oblivious. And hey, you know, it's just me kind of using that as an example of how my imagination could have run wild with me, really. But listen, if you are considering going out wild camping, perhaps if it is something you're unsure about doing it, do go with a friend. Just go with, you know, if you're going to be uncomfortable about being on your own. But then if you are looking at making that step over to doing solo camping or whatever, just don't go too far. Find somewhere relatively local. You know, I'm sure there's going to be somewhere that you'll be able to find. I mean, I don't want to encourage anyone to break the law, because we all know it's a bit of a sticky wicket, really, the whole wild camping thing. But just if you do it, please don't leave a trace. Do not leave a trace. It's the golden rule. So in summary, really, I just want to say thanks a lot for watching this video. It has just been me chatting away. I hope if you're still watching this, thank you so much for listening to my drivel. I really do appreciate it. I need to get back out there, and I'm going to, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm really desperate to get some more winter wild camping in, because there is something special about camping in long, dark, cold nights. Really do enjoy it. Ultimately, I want to do a white camp. I really do. So fingers crossed for a bit of snow this year. It hasn't been the best year. It really hasn't. I'm like everyone else, I'm sure we're all praying that 2021 is going to be a better year. So thank you again for watching. All the best, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. All the best. Cheers. And just going back to shit, I've forgotten his name. So, welcome to the Midlife Crisis Guys channel. It's great to have you along. My name is Al.